Thought I might set the mood there. Hope you guys took notice of my blue shirt. Wore it in support of the classic Harry Potter meme. And we're going to talk about the movie where that was born. Ugh. But before we begin, a quick disclaimer. I am here to talk about the Prisoner of Azkaban film and technical aspects of that film that were brought to life by people who were not J.K. Rowling. I will be making some references to the book in note of some particular changes or pieces of dialogue that I want to bring up, but this is not made in any way to support J.K. Rowling or her shitty views. Okay? I need to get that off my chest, because we don't support that here, any of what she has to say. Alright, now that's out of the way. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was released in the US 20 years ago today on June 4th, 2004. And like most people my age, I grew up on the Harry Potter films. And even though I was a literal baby when Philosopher's Stone was released, they ran for me from the year I turned 2 all the way to the year that I turned 12. And they do mean a lot to my childhood, even if, admittedly, I've never been probably what you consider to be a Potterhead, necessarily. They've still meant a lot to me, especially rewatching them in my adult years. So, particularly Prisoner of Azkaban, which has definitely become probably my favorite of the Harry Potter films. Definitely my most rewatched. And I'll explain why. But first, quick little backstory. This is one of the ones that frightened me as a kid. I did not like rewatching this one. We'll get to why. And it's kind of interesting to look back on how I would literally not, have my moments of just being afraid of this movie. But since then, what used to freak me out excites me about this film. So let's start there. That's a good place to start. What scared me about this movie were the frickin' Dementors. Oh my god, I did not like the Dementors. Their design, their visual design, I should say. Their visual design with the shrouded cloaks over their skeletal bodies, the hand coming through the train door, the noises that they made when they were, attacking or being hit with the Patronus, and then of course the fact that they could, essentially suck out your soul. That's how I read it as a kid. I didn't really get that it was the whole memories thing. It was like, nope, they are just sucking out people's souls. And they frightened me. I actually could distinctly remember there were points where I think when they would show up on screen, I would hide under my blanket. But what is especially interesting about that is that even as a child, I seemed to recognize that what made them scary was ultimately what made them effective. Because when they came back in Order of the Phoenix, which I did see in theaters at 8 years old, I was very upset with their redesign. I was going, what did you do to the Dementors? These aren't the Dementors I know. What did you do? They're gone were their cloaks, gone were their lack of visual specter, aside from their skeletal hands and their occasional shot of their mouth and the hole in the cloak for their mouths. They were just these basic spirit Halloween decoration looking things, and their menace was just completely gone. Which, apparently according to the book, they actually are supposed to be, seen as full skeletal beings. And I'm glad that is a change that Alfonso Cuarón made, because what little bits of them that you see help add to their fear factor. And when they took that away in Order of the Phoenix, even if they were only there for 5 minutes, I felt the change and I did not like it. And I stand by that. And something else from my childhood of watching this movie before we move on to what I find as an adult to be really effective. I didn't know for the longest time that Dumbledore had changed actors. Literally, as a kid, all I noticed was like, oh, he's wearing different colored robes, which I may or may not have subconsciously attributed to the change in color palette of the film. But I just thought he changed clothes. I did not know that they changed actors. Could have fooled me. They're just old guys with long beards and wizard robes. I was just like, I didn't see a difference at all. So it was really funny when I found out later that well, okay, fine. It's not funny because Richard Harris passed away, R.I.P., but that they changed from Richard Harris to Michael Gambon. So I was like, wow. And I did not notice. Excuse me. Oh my god. Swallowed some air. Sorry. Great way to start the video. So let's start with one of the biggest and most memorable aspects of the film is John Williams' score, whom, by the way, I did not know did not score all 8 movies. I thought he did. Probably fooled by the use of the Hedwig theme, but no, it turns out he was only here for the first 3, and I was like, oh, that's too bad. But the man went out with a bang. He said, if this is going to be my last, even if he did or didn't know at the time, but he said, if this is going to be my last Harry Potter film, I am going out with a bang. And he did. A window to the past, especially when Sirius says goodbye, the music during the flight of Buckbeak, even the Double Trouble Toad Choir, I love it. He adds this sort of mysticism to the music in Harry Potter here, where in the first 2 films it was a lot more whimsical for the most part. But I think to correlate with the change in tone of Prisoner of Azkaban, there's far more of almost like a gothic touch, like a more like we're exploring the darker side of witchcraft and wizardry in the film, which I really do appreciate. And the cinematography, I did not realize how much Alfonso Cuarón had filmed Hogwarts as a living landscape, but he does. Every scene is like moving, and the camera, we're exploring with the camera the grounds of Hogwarts. We're looking into the actors' faces when they're showing emotion or they're delivering information. We're really going deep into their facial expressions to really see just every ounce of detail that they're putting into their facial acting, especially when Dumbledore talks about the Dementors, and we zoom in on Harry at his seat, the Gryffindor table, clearly looking frightened. It's beautiful, and it really just adds to the feel that we're exploring Hogwarts and all the people in it, as opposed to just, bearing witness to everything on a screen, which I think is beautiful. And speaking of cinematography, the color palette, I think this is definitely probably, of all the Harry Potter movies that had the darker color palette, this is probably definitely the one that uses it to the best effect, because the gray toned down color palette, it doesn't overtake the movie. You can still see everything that's going on. The daylight hours still look like daylight, lit by daylight, as opposed to the David Yates films where everything was just so saturated and hard to see, and honestly everything looked like kind of waterlogged, especially in Half-Blood Prince, where almost every scene in that film, even in daylight, kind of looked like, you were looking at it through a watery, like there was like water on the lens. I watched a good essay called The Man Who Ruined Harry Potter, who did a good discussion on why David Yates films just look so but I'll link that below. But something else I want to bring up, along with, John Williams being the last Prisoner of Azkaban being the last John Williams scored film, I also want to bring up, this is also the last movie where we get those really cool main menu intro sequences. I'm not the only one who really liked those, right? Where Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, Prisoner of Azkaban, they would have the Hedwig theme going on in the background, and it would show flashes of the movie in the clouds with a do 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 do, like it would build up and it would be like da 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 da. They would get you really kind of hyped up for the movie, even if you've seen it multiple times. Every time that those would play before the main menu set up, I would still just give you like, ooh, yay, I'm gonna watch Harry Potter. They got you excited to watch the movie over again. And they stopped doing that after Prisoner of Azkaban, which is kind of a bummer. It's like, oh, that was a fun trend. I don't know. If anyone else misses those besides me, let me know. But anyway, we'll start talking about some character elements. Lupin, Professor Remus Lupin, was the best Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. No contest. I'm not taking any arguments. Think about it. Quirrell was possessed by Voldemort. Lockhart was incompetent. Which, okay, side note, I'm going off of the movie, largely going off of the movie depictions here, just let people know. But Quirrell was possessed by Voldemort. Or working for him, whatever. Lockhart was incompetent. Mad-Eye Moody was not Mad-Eye Moody and working for Voldemort. Umbridge sucks. Snape was, well, Snape about it. But Lupin, he was the cool uncle who made class fun, made everyone feel involved, actually taught suitable protection that Harry was able to use later in the film, and he gave out chocolate. Yep. How can we forget the classic Remus Lupin line, eat, you'll feel better. It's like, I mean, Lupin said it. That's true. But in all seriousness, he really was just the best Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. There's so much I get out of watching his scenes in this film, where from the moment that he wakes up from a nap, it just conjures the Patronus to take out the Dementors. It's just every scene with him in it where we learn more about him as a teacher and his connections to Harry's family. And every time he's teaching Harry a lesson or talking to him in a one-on-one scene, I think it's part of it is just because, we see Harry, what he goes through with the Dursleys, that to finally have this sense of familial connection in the film, I think is just really, really meaningful. Because obviously Harry had these like one-to-one talks with Dumbledore in the previous two films, but obviously there was still that distance between headmaster and student. Not to mention the fact that Dumbledore more or less was cryptic, or saved his advice for the very end of the movie, and was just kind of like, oh, Harry, you do what you gotta do, and I'll give you a summary of advice by the end of the movie. That's fine. Whereas Lupin, from the beginning, gives Harry pointers, gives him advice, and sets up Harry's journey to get to the climax of the film, where he's able to use Expecto Patronum and save the day. We will talk about that later. But it's so meaningful. Which, speaking of familial connections, I keep wanting to say collection instead of connection. Familial connection. One of my favorite parts of this film, Sirius and Harry, and how Rowling did them dirty in these books. Okay, so in connection to what I was previously talking about Harry and how much he suffered with the Dursleys, and clearly how much he felt so unloved. To have this connection with Sirius and find out that this person, he spent the whole movie, well, good 3/4 of the movie, and probably good most of his school year, wanting to protect himself from, and then ultimately wanting to kill. To see that change in the when they're in the field together and they're talking, and there's this kind of light awkwardness to there where Harry essentially has to, come to terms with the fact he's going, wow, so I just found out the man I've been hating this whole year was the wrong person. Awkward. But it's still so sweet when they're talking and Sirius is reminiscing on his time walking into Hogwarts for the first time, and Harry's saying, well, I didn't think and then Harry talking about how he says, I didn't think my dad wanted his two best friends to become killers. Besides, with Pettigrew dead, he gets away. You can't be free. Sorry, I start blanking out on his line. But boys, I love the story progression. I think this is probably the first time I watched a film where the main character wants to, thinks somebody is the villain. And then, big story reveal going, oh no, it's not who you thought. They're actually kind of decent, or they're more multi-layered than you think they are, which is always something I've loved in stories. But I think this was probably the first time that I really experienced that in Prisoner of Azkaban. And it's just so good. And I just love the way Harry can jump from, during the scene in the woods when he goes, oh, he finds me, because I'm going to be ready. When he does, I'm going to kill him. To not even hesitating when Sirius tries to protect everybody from Lupin and leads Werewolf Lupin away, and he just bolts after him going, Sirius! He just bolts after him. It's like, oh, it's just really nice to see that he wants to protect him. After all this, after spending a whole year wanting to find him, now he's working his ass off to try and protect him. I was like, oh. Even the part when he's scared that Sirius has been killed by the Dementors down at the beach, I was like, oh, it's really sweet. But I actually didn't realize how sweet it actually was until I actually, I looked this up in the book. And Harry, first, during the scene where Sirius, in the book, just be that, Sirius suggests that Harry come live with him, and Harry's like, dude, where's your house? When can I move in? I was like, oh, Harry. He's like, and then, oh my god, then his happy thoughts when the Dementors were fighting and he was trying to use his Patronus the first time to fight them off, his thought process was, Sirius is going to be a free man. I'm going to get to leave the Dursleys. We're going to live together. We're going to be happy. We're going to be okay. And I was just like, oh my god. I literally thought I was going to get emotional. I was like, I'm going to cry. He was so happy. Harry was so happy to get away from these people. And then the fact that by the end of the book, that despite the success of getting Sirius and Buckbeak escape from their demises, that Harry's like one of his biggest feelings is just, son of a bitch, now I'm gonna go back to the Dursleys, what the fuck? And I was like, oh my god. My heart broke for him. I was like, oh, Harry. But on the bright side, it didn't lead to him getting to use Sirius's reputation against the Dursleys to essentially get whatever the hell he wanted. So, you know what? Good for him. Because I didn't realize until, as an adult, just how much I really don't like that poor Harry had to keep going back to live with the frickin' Dursleys after 11 years of misery and mistreatment from these people. Then he gets to find out he's a wizard. He's part of a world that they're not part of. He gets to go to a school where he gets to make friends, learn about his family, where he's actually treated nicely, and then every summer he still had to go back and live with these people. I mean, what the hell? I've been told that there was an explanation for that, going yada yada yada, going yada yada yada. Harry had to stay there because of Lily's protection spell to keep him safe. Yada yada. I don't care. I honestly don't care. I think that's just an excuse, just to keep Harry going, I would go back to Hogwarts every year even though my life is in danger. I don't care. Harry deserved better. And when he got his godfather back, and he was so happy that he literally did not care that this is a man who he spent most of a year wanting to kill and who is still technically a convict. And he was just like straight up like, dude, I would rather live with the man who just escaped from prison than endure another summer with these people. And it's just like, God. I mean, I even wondered the fact why he didn't just live with the Weasleys. Like, I was going, if not Sirius, why didn't he just live with the Weasleys? He was practically family by that point. I mean, the beginning of Prisoner of Azkaban, and when he meets up with the Weasleys, Molly Weasley is literally fussing over him like one of her own sons, asking him, like, do you have all your clothes, all your books, everything you need for school? It's like, and he's still forced to live with the freaking Dursleys. I don't get it. It's stupid. Harry deserved better. But anyway, that kind of went off on a tangent, but I just had to get all that out. But they were done dirty. You cannot imagine how heartbroken I was as a child when Sirius was killed in Order of the Phoenix, and I had to actually check with my mom because he got sucked into the crap. What was that again? I should have looked that up before I did this video, but when they were in the Department of Mysteries, I'm just gonna say that. If someone could correct me and see what that mirror was in the comments, that would be great. But we had such a thing, and I checked with my mom, going, Mom, is Sirius gone? And she's like, yeah. And I was just like, I was so sad. I was so hurt because Harry had this hopeful future. He had a member of his family. He went through all that work to try and protect him, and then he still got killed off. I haven't forgiven her for that, and I still won't, because, again, previous rant, but Harry deserved some happiness. He deserved at least one living family member. I don't care. Or at least they should have lived with each other for a time before the battle with Voldemort and the Death Eaters. Okay? They deserve better. And I still stand by that. Okay. Okay. Rant over. Now we're going to move on to, of course, the iconic Expecto Patronum! God, that shit never gets old. I love how every time when Freeform, previously known as ABC Family, you're a real one if you remember that, would play their Harry Potter marathons, and they would play that in the trailers all the time. I don't care. That never gets old. Daniel says it with so much power and conviction. I have to just say it with him every time. What I think, and something I found out from the book that I thought was really interesting, was that Hermione was actually supposed to be on that beach with Sirius or Lakeside, whatever. Hermione was supposed to be at the lake with Harry and Sirius, and he was supposed to be protecting both of them. And then when the Time Turner came around, it was just Harry performing the Patronus, which I think that was an effective change. I was so surprised because I thought it worked so effectively in the movie that I was shocked that it was actually the other way around. Because, because of the development between Harry and Sirius's relationship, I think it makes a lot more sense having it just be Harry as his one-man army protecting Sirius, the man he previously wanted to kill. Take a shot for how many times I've said that now. What can I say? I love that progression. But yeah, the fact that Harry is now working his ass off to protect Sirius from this whole horde of Dementors, when previously he was told this was the man who wanted him dead. So taking Hermione out of the equation, I think, adds a lot more impact to that scene. And then when you having Hermione show up with Harry during the Time Turner sequence, and she's like the audience surrogate. She's experiencing what we as the audience already experienced. And just this, and the way Emma Watson just kind of does commentary on it as like monotone voice, but she's like, Harry, this is horrible. She goes, You're dying. Both of you. It's like she delivers it's like a car crash she can't look away from. It's just so horrible and morbid, but she can't look away from it. And then it's almost like her feelings, her witnessing what happened, that pushes Harry to go running in there with the Expecto Patronum. And then, once again, power, conviction, and he goes, Expecto Patronum! And it's like, yes, king! Like I said, the fact that it was Lupin's teachings that helped him get to this point is such a triumphant scene. Never gets old. And speaking of time turners, I don't care if time turners don't make sense. They're just cool, okay? I think they look cool. I love the little hourglass in the middle that they have necklace. Hell, now I'm kind of wishing I had a time turner necklace. I might have seen one of those at Comic-Con. Who knows? Because I love them. They look cool. And in all fairness to the whole situation of the whole, why don't you use the time turner to bring back your dead parents, Harry? I'm going to speak as a Whovian and say, well, maybe Harry's parents dying are a fixed point in history. Did you ever think of that? But yeah, they look cool. They're pretty. And who could hate the scene where Harry sees the time turner in Hermione's hands and she slaps his hand away, and then Daniel just looks at her like, the fuck? It was like, who could hate that scene? It's funny. Just wordlessly, she's like, hey! She's like, don't touch! And he's like, girl, what the hell? And speaking of cool Harry Potter items, the Marauders map. I think it's safe to say Prisoner of Azkaban probably features two of my favorite Harry Potter objects. The Marauders map is so cool, and I love how that was used in the end credit sequence of the film, with everyone's credits coming up as the little labels, and the footprints, and the map. Love it. And I think it's a very useful item, too. Although I did always wonder how, because they always show glimpses of the Marauders map, I do kind of wonder when the Weasley twins would say it shows everyone what they're doing at any time of every day. It's like literally everybody. It can fit literally everybody. I mean, we always see obviously the most important names, but it's like everyone, literally everyone. Like, damn, that's one hell of an effective map. But I do feel like we should see like more student names wanderly like scattered around the map going I mean, to be fair, I think the first time we were introduced to it is when a lot of the kids are going to Hogsmeade, so everybody's outside and they're showing the map inside the building, but still. Just saying. Just a little thing to bring up. And one more thing I want to mention. It wasn't until I was an adult that I realized this is the only Harry Potter movie that doesn't feature some form of Voldemort. Yes, we get the reveal of one of his followers, but we don't actually get Voldemort himself, whether as a ghost or a face on the back of some dude's head. And you know what? I actually really don't mind. I really don't mind that Voldemort is not in this movie. Which I think is, kind of interesting. And I started to think about it. I was like, wait, does Voldemort kind of work better as a looming background threat as opposed to a head-on threat? I don't know. I mean, that's not to say like Ralph Fiennes did a bad job as Voldemort in Goblet of Fire going forward. Not at all. But I don't know. I mean, even in Chamber of Secrets, where technically we get a Voldemort as a Horcrux, we get the spirit of Voldemort as Tom Riddle, but it's not Voldemort to his full power necessarily. So that kind of dampens the edge just a little bit. I mean, if anything, I think the Basilisk is more of a threat in that movie than he is. To be perfectly fair. And that one is also one of my more watched Harry Potter movies. I think I might actually prefer Voldemort as a looming threat. The presence of Voldemort, the threat of Voldemort coming to power, I think might actually hold a little more weight than he does as an actual head-on threat. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. Maybe it's because of the way Philosopher's Stone had initially set him up, and we only see those like back of the head shots of him in the cloak during the Hagrid telling the backstory, or when he's, killing the unicorn. Maybe it comes back to the whole idea of the Dementors. Again, Voldemort, the less we see of Voldemort, the more of a threat he is. Horror movie killer logic. I think that's how that goes. But yeah, I think I might actually prefer him that way. That when he actually becomes a guy, and then he's just, yelling around, just, talking straight to Harry and saying things like, they're doing the whole Cadabra! Who knows? Let me know in the comments if anyone else feels that way. But yeah, so I hope you enjoy that ramble, what was ultimately a ramble, about my favorite Harry Potter movie, and how much I realize I actually have a lot to say about it, because so much of it has come to mean a lot to me, and not only just because it takes me back, and it's just one of those films from my childhood that I like to look back on and go, yeah, I like being around for that, even if I was literally going into kindergarten. But I'm happy to see that a lot of other people consider Prisoner of Azkaban kind of a cozy movie. Like, despite its dark, relatively gloomy atmosphere, it is a cozy movie. I can plug that one in, watch it in bed on my computer without an issue, and just still be captivated by it, while at the same time enjoying so much more about it from a technical aspect that adds to the magic of the films. Now, would I say, am I one of those people who thinks maybe Alfonso Cuarón should have directed all the movies? I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, I do kind of like that we have, 4 different directing styles with the films, but I do think it would have been cool if we got to see him at least do Goblet of Fire. At least get 1 or 2 more movies out of him, because of how much life he gave to Harry Potter, and how much more of a lived-in world, an explored world that he made. Interactive, that's the word. He made it so much more interactive with the audience that I think it would have been cool to at least see that, to have gotten that again. Maybe not even in Harry Potter's, maybe in Fantastic Beasts. Who knows? Maybe they would have been better. I don't know. But, yeah. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my feelings, and maybe regale me with your own stories of Prisoner of Azkaban or any other Harry Potter movies that mean a lot to you. Alright? Happy 20th anniversary, Prisoner of Azkaban.